I am going to start us off, as Raviva mentioned, on our next bracha, on the bracha of Selihah, of forgiveness, whatever that means. We're going to look at the blessing today. We're going to look at the parallel blessing that was recited in Eretz Yisrael. And we're going to look at one of the beginning questions around this bracha. So this is our bracha, again, pretty short and almost sort of structurally reminiscent of the bracha that we were looking at 2 weeks ago, which is the Hashivenu bracha about tshuva. So we have here, Slach lanu avinu ki chatanu, mechal lanu malkenu ki fashanu, ki mochel v'soleach ata. Baruch ata Hashem chanun hamarbe lisloch. That's the way that we often say it today, but in most of the texts, it actually originally read chanun umarbe lisloach. We'll come to that in a second. So how do we translate this? Slach lanu avinu ki chatanu. Forgive us, our Father. And now, how do we translate ki here? It could either be although we have sinned or because we have sinned. Usually the word ki in the Amidah means because. And indeed, it might be an admission of guilt, or it might be sort of like despite the fact that we have sinned. We'll come back to that and look at it a little bit more in depth in a moment. And then we have either a synonym for what we just said or another level of forgiveness for another level of crime. So the second line is Mechal lanu malkenu ki fashanu. Mochel is translated here to pardon, has the connotation of something that is more complete, let's say, than forgiveness, although we haven't really defined forgiveness either. So it's not clear exactly what either of these means. They might mean the same thing. They might mean something different. And what is the difference between ki fashanu and ki chatanu? Fashanu is translated here, committed a crime, has sort of this connotation of something very intense, a very intense negative act, as opposed to a chet, which is a sin, which is often translated as missing the mark, like perhaps a lower level of intensity in terms of the wrongdoing that we've committed. So it's possible that these are just the same. Like Slach lanu avinu ki chatanu is the same as Mechal lanu malkenu ki fashanu, but a lot of commentaries make hay out of the fact that they're not the same words, and could we just describe the difference between them, especially because we know, at least in the Bible, that a chet and a pesha, translated here a sin versus a crime, are different levels of intensity. So we're going to come back to the word mochel and soleach as we move through this blessing this week. But just for now, to note that this is really the core, 2 steps of our bracha, a request or a demand, forgive us, an address, our Father, and for what we have done because we have sinned. And then we get that repeated again, Mechal lanu, pardon us, our King, for we have committed a crime. Okay, and then we get the words repeated again, ki mochel v'soleach ata, because here the key seems to mean because, not although, because you are forgiving and because you're pardoning and forgiving. And we get that because line in a number of the blessings of the Amidah. It's sort of like the rationale line. And then we get the end of the bracha, Baruch ata Hashem, blessed are you God, chanun, and here means gracious, like chen. And we saw this word a couple blessings ago with chonein hadat, God graces us with knowledge. So here we're calling God chanun, gracious, umarbe, and abundant to forgive. Gracious and abundant to forgive, or in the way we have it today, gracious, the one who is abundant in forgiving. Okay, so that's our bracha, just sort of going a little bit deeper into the translation. Let's look at the way it read in the Eretz Yisrael tradition. Started off the same, Slach lanu avinu, and again, the avinu and malkenu terms, we saw that in the last bracha, Hashivenu avinu l'toratecha v'karvenu malkenu l'avoratecha. So you have avinu malkenu repeating here again, but in the Eretz Yisrael version, we only have avinu, we do not have malkenu, and ki chatanu lecha, a sort of direct address. We have sinned towards you, not just some sort of big sin, but a sin towards you. And then instead of mochel, to pardon, we have this verb, mechei, which means to erase. Mechei v'ha'aver al psha'enu. erase and pass over our pesha. So we do have the pesha, right? We have the chet and the pesha in both versions of this, but the verb switches. It's not mochel, to pardon, but rather to erase, mechei, and also v'ha'aver, to cause to pass over our crimes. Mineged einecha, pass them from before your eyes. Why? Ki rabim rachamecha. Now we also have a rationale line, but instead of ki mochel v'soleach ata, we have ki rabim rachamecha, because your mercy is great, or your mercies are great. And then we have the blessing, Baruch Ata Hashem. Instead of chanun, there's no trace of the gracing here. It's just hamarbeh lisloach, the who is abundant in forgiving. Great in forgiving. Okay, so this is the parallel version in Eretz Yisrael. I think it's always interesting to see which choices are being made, which are sort of the constant, critical words that are in both traditions, like Selihah, obviously, where it starts off, Avinu, our father, but not Malkeinu, not our king. We have Pesha, and we have Mechei and Machal as sin, sort of almost the same word, but not exactly the same. We're going to explore that word as we move in through the week. And we have Hamarbeh Lisloach, who is abundant in forgiving, or whatever Lisloach means, as the common for the end of the bracha, although ours adds in the word gracious. Okay, so we're just trying to raise up some of the issues that we're noticing here as we start our week with this relatively short bracha. I want to just look at one aspect for the rest of our time today, which is the ki chatanu and ki fashanu. What does it mean when I'm saying, forgive us, our Father, for or although we have sinned? And that's sort of the translation choice that we have to make here. So let's take a look at the word ki with the word soleach in one phrase in the book of Psalms. Leman shimcha Adonai, v'salachta la'avoni ki ravhu. For the sake of your name, O Lord, Adonai, may you forgive v'salachta la'avoni, my sin, translated here, JPS, my crime, though it is great. Ki ravhu. Now you could translate that, which is great. Robert Alter chooses that translation, but JPS chooses the other translation, which is even though it's great. Ki ravhu. So the word ki can mean even though, okay? But it also can mean because, or which is. So this is picked up by the Siddur commentator we've seen throughout this course, the Bar Yakar. He's saying out in the 13th century, Ulufichach amar ki chatanu, afal pi shaya tzarich lomar af ki chatanu. So the Bar Yakar is reading this as ki chatanu, as that we have sinned. Forgive us, our Father, in that we have sinned, as opposed to although we have sinned, right? You might have expected, he says, that it said, af ki chatanu, even though we sinned, forgive us, right? But that's not exactly what he says. He's reading it as, forgive us because we have sinned. Now, that doesn't make a lot of sense. I mean, it does make sense in that you can't be forgiven without having sinned, but there's no reason to forgive me, because the reason to forgive me is not because I sinned. The reason to forgive me is because you're abundant in mercy. And so this occasion is this midrash to be quoted by the Bar Yakar. I brought you the midrash in the original because I think it's worth looking at directly. So Rabbi Shmuel Bar Nachmani, Alami Bavel, Bishvil Lishol Shlosha Devarim. Rabbi Shmuel Bar Nachmani came up from Bavel to ask three specific questions. Matzad Yonatan Ish Habira. This is, he found, seems to be Rabbi Yonatan, the rabbi we know as Rabbi Yonatan, but here named Yonatan Ish Habira, Yonatan, the man of the capital. And he told him his three questions. And this is one of the questions that he traveled all the way from Bavel to ask Rabbi Yonatan. Shuva Marle, about a verse in Daniel, Ma dichtiv la'Adonai Eloheinu harachamim v'haslichot ki maradnu bo. It says in the book of Daniel, chapter 9, verse 1, to Adonai our God is mercy and forgiveness, ki maradnu bo, for we have rebelled against him. Lo yala lomar ela ki shamarnu torato. Shouldn't the verse have said, well, you have mercy and forgiveness because we have kept your Torah. That is to say, forgive us for something good that we've done. Have mercy because forget us about all the bad things we've done. Let's talk about the good things we've done. We've kept your Torah. But it doesn't say that. It says, because we have rebelled against you. So Rabbi Yonatan says back to Shmuel Bar Nachmani, no, this is actually written correctly. It's written well. It's the way of the world that when a laborer deals faithfully with his master and his master pays him his wage, what reason is there for the laborer to be grateful to his master, right? If there's a normal interaction where I hire you to do a job, you do a job, so I pay you, then no big deal, right? It's totally normal. There's no relationship here other than the one that was originally contracted for. But when ought he be grateful to him? When should the worker be grateful to the boss? At the moment when the worker does not manage to complete the task with faithfulness, and nevertheless the employer doesn't hold back the wages. And that's why it says, not because we have done your Torah, but rather because we have rebelled against you, nevertheless you have mercy and forgiveness. So the Rabbi Elie connects this to our bracha as well, which is to say, when we say, Slach lana Avinu, forgive us our Father, not because we're great, not because we keep your Torah, not because we're amazing, but rather because we have sinned. It's sort of calling upon the fact that forgiveness comes because we have sinned. We're admitting to the sin, and that itself is going to trigger the Selihah, the forgiveness. Okay, so that's, again, the double way that you could read ki here, although we have sinned or because we have sinned, and that occasions this potential relationship of, even though you didn't do the work, I'm nevertheless going to pay you the wages. Even though you sinned, I'm nevertheless going to forgive you. That's where we're going to start off with this bracha today.